Welcome back to another Ashen reaction. We are going to be watching Agent Jake TV ranking every Remembrance boss in Elden Ring's DLC. I've hesitated on this one because, not because of Agent Jake or anything, but because my opinion on the DLC bosses is completely whack and no one agrees with me. I think they're all kind of a little ludicrous as far as learning them is concerned, and because of that, I end up not really enjoying them in the long run, so they're just kind of whatever to me. I made a whole ranking. You can check that one out. But I want to see what Agent Jake has to say about this whole situation.
I have over 200 hours in the DLC so far. I have over 2,000 hours in the main game as well. And I'm currently doing a challenge where I'm trying to beat all of these bosses in the DLC. No Scadu tree upgrades, rune level 1, and only using a club. And we've made it through about 75% of the bosses. We still have a few more to go, but we'll get it done. So
okay, so basically what I'm hearing is that this guy is an absolute Giga Chad at this game. However, last time I heard things along this line, the person in question then proceeded to make the dumbest takes I'd ever heard. So, let's see if he falls into his own bias of doing challenge runs. Because it's easy to fall into a bias, right, where, oh my gosh, this boss was so hard last time I tried it that now I can't look at it the same. It's easy to do that. It is.
What I'm trying to explain is that I know how the bosses work mechanically, lore-wise, sort of everything. And I will preface this at the beginning that this is my opinion and you are allowed to have your own, because that's how the world works. So let's get started.
Nope.
Dancing Lion. I love this boss. I really do. I love the aesthetic. Lion. I love the mechanics of the fight. I
don't get the aesthetic thing. Why do people love its I can't even talk. Why do people love the aesthetic so much? It's got big giant lion head. What even is it? What aesthetic? Like it's a big old giant thing that waves around like crazy with a big giant lion head. What aesthetic are we referring to here? I don't get that.
Love all of the different elements that it can use.
That's cool.
The only glaring issue is the camera. The camera can get stuck in walls.
Camera's terrible.
The boss moves around and flips and spins and does all kinds of stuff all the time, and the camera can't.
For starters, I just realized he doesn't have an F tier, so
really keep up with it. I want to put the.
I actually don't remember if there are any F tier DLC bosses. They all have something going for them.
Divine Lion in S, but
are you kidding me, dude? What's that special about it? What's that special about it? Okay, it's got elemental attacks that switch between. Cool. Other than that, what beast boss isn't at least somewhat similar? Okay, so it's got this big bite. The golden hippo does the big bite, and other bosses swing around the arena like crazy. Bro, it's not an S tier boss. The elements are cool, but the camera, the arena, and all of its other moves, like the only unique moves it has are the elements. I mean, it's B, at least. Like, top B. Just because of the camera alone. If it wasn't for the camera, I don't know, because the camera sucks, so we can't really tell. Okay, so I've already completely disagreed with this guy, but whatever. I kind of saw that coming.
But for some reason, I don't know if it's the Legacy Dungeon of Bellarat leading up to the boss being somewhat underwhelming, but it all comes down to I just don't care that much about this boss. Like when I'm trying to think of what's interesting to me
exactly
throughout the entire DLC, this doesn't come up so good.
Yeah.
So often. I think I'm gonna put him at the highest A+ that I can.
Okay.
Very, very close on the cusp of S. The camera really brings it back, and then the Legacy Dungeon I think should have been a bit longer. Have you guys noticed that after the boss fight, there's that stairwell leading up to what would be Enter Ilum, and then it's just kind of useless. Even if you use Mesmer's Kindling to burn away the shadow,
just
you can go up there and you still can't really do anything. I think it'd be cool if we had to go back, and then because of what you did with Mesmer, the Legacy Dungeon of Bellarat kind of changes a little bit. Like,
I actually wouldn't prefer that because the DLC's terrain and movement is already so confusing as it is. I don't think we need to add on another element of that.
Next up is Rolana. I know the community overall really, really likes this boss. I know they do. I feel like her boss design and the mechanics of the fight, it's like a roll catch simulator, like kind of contrived difficulty somewhat. I also think her lore is lackluster. I
don't get the lore thing, dude. What makes underwhelming versus normally good lore? Like, if a boss has a story as deep as these guys do at all, then it's usually good. Like, why? It doesn't change anything in the game. So just learning it is its own reward. I don't understand that. So many people have said that about the DLC bosses, especially Radahn and Mikola in particular. I don't understand what's worth complaining about the lore. Why do people care that much? I don't get it.
A lot of people try to make like headcanon of that Messmer and her were in love or something. That's all headcanon, and nothing of that is confirmed. It's just not. I guess you can make the claim that R'Lana loves Messmer, obviously, since she abandoned everything she once was, blah, blah, blah. And they clearly weren't done with her, where they added in the chair to the boss room just to give her a reason as to why she's in the room. They added that in a month later, which is really weird. She almost comes off like a Convergence mod boss, where they're just kind of there. And then if you guys have seen the bonfire video where Pontiff Sullivan very much inspired R'Lana in a lot of her movements and stuff. Even Lady Maria has a bunch of movements that are just put onto this boss, kind of like what Convergence mod developers do. They do that pretty often. It comes off weird. So I know everybody loves this boss. I personally don't. I have more bad things to say than good things about R'Lana. I think she's a B. Yeah, I think she is pretty cool, but a lot of her mechanics of her fight feel contrived, and her lore just doesn't do it for me.
Again, what lore would do it for you? What kind of story do you have to hear where suddenly a boss's lore is good? But I do agree, she's a role catching simulator, and that whole thing about reusing ideas and like animations. I do think he's onto something, because the DLC came out very freaking quickly. Like, when you really think about how big the DLC is, it came out pretty quickly. It felt like an eternity to wait for the DLC, but man, it was pretty fast. Like, I cannot imagine they didn't take a crap ton of shortcuts. And I think the camera is a big example of the lack of QA that went into the DLC. I honestly don't think they tested all that much with the DLC. I think they made it and was like, okay, we'll make sure the bosses are beatable at least, so we don't get sued or yelled at or something, and then fix it later, because the DLC just feels so weirdly gamey. I don't know if gamey is the right word to put it, but like the location of the scattered tree fragments, the way the environment interconnects is just super bizarre. A lot of bosses' moves I have heard been inspired by other games in their catalog, so I agree that all that is kind of weird.
The Putrescent Knight, the easiest boss in the DLC, at least.
I think he's not exactly wrong about that, and not for a good reason. I think Midra's the easiest, personally, but other than that, or maybe the Sunflower. The Sunflower's pretty easy too, but oof, the Putrescent Knight, yeah, it's fine. It's good, except it's got like one or two super annoying attacks. The thing is, when you do challenge runs, of course you'll think bosses are fair because you're forced to make them fair, right? But when you're learning them naturally, it's just not fun to fight these guys, honestly, a lot of the time. They're just not very fun.
With the Remembrance bosses, in my opinion, I like to have the headcanon lore that this is Radahn's flesh that Mikola discarded when he took Radahn's spirit to be made into his consort. There's not a lot that suggests that, but that makes me feel better about the boss. I like this boss, personally. I don't like what he represents, though, which is Saint Trina. I think Saint Trina is one of the most lackluster, underdeveloped parts of the DLC, and because he's affiliated with that, really brings him down for me. He does run away a lot. Phase 2, once you learn that you can just jump all the fire attacks. Which,
I know, but the fire attacks come out so fast with so little telegraphing. It's so annoying to try to do.
Which is fine, you know, he's very, very easy, especially when you realize you can just deflect and guard counter him. Very simple boss. I don't dislike him, but I don't like him either, which is sort of how I feel about R'Lana. Like, it's on the same tier. I think I like R'Lana a little bit more than this boss, so I think I gotta put him in the same tier.
I do agree Saint Trina was pretty underwhelming. I did learn a little bit what her deal is, and I'm not really a lore person. I don't really go out of my way to learn lore, but if I see like a YouTube short or something that explains it, I'll be like, all right, I'll just check this out real quick. But yeah, Saint Trina, for how important she seems to be, is pretty underwhelming, and her quest is kind of cool. I like the rewards you get. Tholier, I forgot how you pronounce his name. The Simp. You get his gear. I'm actually playing with the sleep build right now as we speak. It's actually pretty fun, pretty cool. But I agree. Putrescent Knight is fine. And like he has roll catches that are kind of annoying, but they're not all his moveset, right? It's a natural level of, hey, I have a roll catch here. I have a really fast, hard to telegraph attack here. He does a lot of damage, but not terrible. I don't know if that's consistent with what I said in my own tier list, but oh well.
The hitboxes seem to be great. The fall down there is kind of weird, but that is pretty cinematic. Just kind of a whatever.
I mean, it's a Souls game. They all have weird drops like that, like freaking Midir in Dark Souls 3, right? You had the Abyss in Dark Souls 1. That we've always got the weird drop. We have to have the weird drop in a Souls game.
If we're talking about the lead up to the Putrescent Night, the Cerulean Coast is the most barren part of the DLC.
As far as like loot, enemies, and things like that, right? It looks amazing. As all the DLC does. That's the thing. It looks amazing, but the actual layouts don't really make sense, and the rewards where they're at.
Press 1 in chat if you agree. Like, the Cerulean Coast should have been expanded on much more than it was.
Probably.
And leading down into the pit, you get this like beautiful view of the fissure, and then you realize once you're exploring through it that that's also very barren and like kind of nothing going on. But you know, I guess you can make some headcanon lore out of all that stuff too. It's just kind of like a bummer.
What's all the headcanon referencing? This guy, I think, is a little bit too deep in the lore, if I'm being honest with you. What's all this referencing the headcanon? Headcanon is something that should be very sparsely used in a fandom because it's headcanon. It's not real. It's not real. Some people take headcanon for things way too seriously. And I don't know why he's only referencing headcanon. Try to dig into what is the Cerulean Coast all about. Cillian Coast, I think his auto chapter's kind of messed up his spelling, but look into it. What's it about? Ask VaatiVidya to make videos on each thing. I don't know. It's at least the Putrescent Night is based on something that he doesn't have information about, and it makes sense. So I don't know.
You know, I just get a bummer off this boss pretty much. It's beautiful but boring. Beautiful, boring,
and effective. Beautiful, boring, but effective, I think, is a good way to put B. Because you got beautiful and effective, but then you got boring. So 2 out of 3 ain't bad.
The Sunflower. Scadu, Shadow.
That one's all right. It's the most telegraphed, arguably one of the most fair bosses in the DLC as far as annoying levels. I keep using the word fair and annoying interchangeably because no boss in this DLC is quote unquote unfair, but when you're learning it, it feels like it. So I'm kind of using that as my basis for when I'm talking about it. But the Sunflower is basically just really high damage in exchange for more slow attacks, better telegraphing. I like it, okay. The resurrection thing is kind of cool, but it can get a bit boring to fight when it keeps resurrecting. I don't hate it though. It's alright. I'd stick it in B. I can't remember where I put it last time. Maybe C or B, but
Skibbity Toilet. I don't like this
Shut
boss.
up.
I don't know why.
Figures, dude. I swear I'm like that. Oh my god. Oh, this boss is alright. Everyone else, I hate this boss. Right? Like, hang on. I just saw a video that I want to save and react to later. What Elden Ring is like for someone who doesn't play video games.
Why this flower has Miquella's Great Rune, and it pisses me off that he does. Nothing really explains why.
Who cares?
It's just there. Makes me mad. This
Who
boss's
cares?
hitboxes are absolutely ridiculously
Are they?
horrible. They're so bad. The design,
I don't remember.
however, is beautiful. I love the way the
I don't remember
sunflower
the hitboxes.
looks. Like if somebody told me they're making a sunflower boss, I would want it to look like this. It feels more like
True.
I'm fighting 3 different Shadow Tree avatars than the same Shadow Tree avatar in 3 different stages.
That's a decent way of putting it because it does change a little bit every time it comes back, which I think is a cool mechanic.
Kind of hard to explain that. So I think he's a solid C. I'm just going to put him right there in the C.
All right.
I don't like him as much as Rolana and the Putrescent Night.
Thing is, he doesn't have an F tier, but he says he doesn't like the boss. So if you don't like the boss, I mean, that's at least a D tier, right? Unless you're trying to be a little more objective about it, which I don't know.
Some good aspects of it, but overall, the fight is not fun. Plain
It's
and
definitely not the
simple.
most interesting
Next up
fight.
is Commander Gaius. This is the worst boss fight in the game by far.
I don't disagree with that take, because the other bosses are more annoying to learn, but Commander Gaius, I think, is the most consistently annoying to fight. That charge attack, man, what the crap? Even with a shield build isn't saving you in this fight, but yeah.
Its movements are awkward to learn. The hitboxes are trash. The lore behind him's like,
True.
I guess, okay.
Who cares?
Like, you know, that he was friends with Radon and Mesmer, and that he got bullied because he doesn't have legs or whatever. And
What?
he's like Radon because he loves animals, or like, you know, that's kind of cool, sure. But the mechanics
That sounds lame as crap, but I don't.
of fighting this guy, especially that charge at the beginning, I do not care that they put him off into the corner, like changed his starting position when you're refighting him. Did not help the boss at all. As
Not
a
much,
remembrance
no.
boss, this guy did not.
I mean, I prefer they do that so you have time to activate your buffs and summon if you want to, things like that, but
Even get his own music, just basic enemy music from the base game.
Did he
Boring,
actually?
uninspired. His lance is a really good weapon though. Like if you turn his
Oh, yeah.
remembrance in to get that lance, great weapon. But
Oh, yeah, I
this
think
is
my
the
cousin
boss
was using
fight
it.
that I enjoyed the least by far. So I'm gonna put him in a D. I didn't even add an F to this list because I don't think anything is a total failure. I just don't like that boss. Mesmer the Impaler.
that's a good way of putting it. A total failure. I don't remember any of the DLC bosses being F tier on my list. Maybe just out of personal disinterest, but I agree. Commander Gaius is very, that charge attack is just ridiculous. I'm glad he does start off at a distance, but at the same time, not much of a difference is being made, so I agree overall. But the thing is, the first 2 times I fought him, it was relatively simple. It was relatively straightforward. I guess I got really lucky because he was using moves that were telegraphed, relatively easy to dodge. He wasn't spamming his charge attack. I guess I just got lucky the first couple times I fought him, and then the 3rd time around, it was like a switch flipped, right? Like, okay.
Not a bad thing that I can say about this guy. They knew this was the best part of the DLC, and they made him all 18 inches of the marketing. This could be the best boss fight in the entire game. His lore is incredible. I love fighting Mesmer. He's the guy that I practice the most.
Hang on.
Like dodging his attacks is so satisfying. His music's so pretty. His stage 1 to stage 2 transition is epic. The lore with his mother and starting the crusade and all of that stuff, like, is so cool. Like, I absolutely love it. I don't think anyone would argue with me that Mesmer's an easy S tier fight. There is actually nothing that I don't like about the fight. I guess you could argue that when he goes into stage 2 and he has those like snake attacks that jump at you, the hitboxes on that are a little off, but honestly, the more I practiced it, the more I kind of figured those things out, and I was consistently dodging them. That was the problem with Gaius and the Sunflower, is that I would dodge the exact same way and just get hit by inconsistent hitboxes. So easy S tier.
So what I basically just heard is a bunch of nothing. Oh, blank is cool, blank is good, blank is good. No real good explanations. He didn't mention the fact that the fire particles are absurdly abundant. They're everywhere, they're in your face. Learning him is insanely difficult and annoying, because here's the thing, this tier list is solely his perspective, and he's done challenge runs. Of course he knows these bosses. Who cares? Who cares about all that stuff, right? He knows these moves perfectly. The average person has no freaking clue. I still don't have much of a clue. I can beat Mesmer now relatively easily, but it took hours, literal hours and hours of fighting him, and a shield build. Play the DLC with a shield build, it will save you, I swear. You'll learn the bosses, and then you can go back with a melee build later, and it's much easier, it's much more fun that way. But still, Mesmer good. That's like Elden Ring community 101. Mesmer good. Mesmer, I don't care why. Story good, I think. Boss cool. Snake cool. That's what I hear from people. That's all I hear. Okay, his moveset's cool. Are we gonna ignore the fact that a lot of his moves, though, are kind of like you have to dodge a specific direction to pull it off? But you know, he did challenge runs, right? So that makes the boss better because he did the challenge runs. I don't know. That's the thing with YouTubers. We're biased to an extent, but I have not yet taken the time to learn these bosses to such a ludicrous extent. I've beaten the melee only, but it was a nightmare. I hated doing it. It wasn't fun to fight these guys because of the amount of roll catching, the amount of like, oh, you can't dodge this way, you have to dodge that way. Oh, you dodged like a tad too early for like Rolana's magic roll catch, depending on distance, obviously. But it's that kind of stuff. Like, are we really just looking at what these bosses by their intention? Like, sure, Mesmer was intended to be like a back and forth roll hit case. But when you actually look at learning him, you look at how ridiculously fast he can be. Is it really fun to fight? After hours and hours, sure, he is the most fun here to fight. I agree, he is probably the best in the DLC, but only by association of, okay, the rest of them are so annoying as well, and they just so happen to not have that really satisfying back and forth. Like that one like multi-pierce attack when he's in the air, you have to dodge forward. You have no other options but to dodge forward into him. If you don't do it, you get hit, and that's the kind of design I hate. Now, most of his moves aren't like that, unlike Radahn, so he's better, but I'm still not sticking him in S tier. I will never put him in S tier because I have memories. My brain works. I have memories of this boss being so absurdly irritating and annoying. He kills me in like 2-3 hits right when I first fight him. You know, it's, again, what are people categorizing by? Do they not remember fighting all these guys for the first time? Did they go in with the shield build like I was supposed to and then come back later? Is that, I don't know. I'm done ranting. Moving on.
Easiest S tier I could give. Romina, Saint of the Bud. I love her music. I love fighting her. Romina
She's fun to
feels
fight.
so much like a consistent Souls boss. Does that make sense? She feels like a Souls boss, like something you'd see in Dark Souls, right? Like,
she does. Yeah.
I love the movement, the soundtrack, the lore wise. I feel like they could have expanded on her a bit more, and it
as I keep hearing,
bums
who
me
gives
out
a
that
crap?
they didn't, you know, like,
because how many of you actually know Elden Ring's lore to any extent that even matters, right? Like, you can learn little stories here and there. Like, I know some of it. I know some little stories here and there. I don't care, man. It's a game. I'm more concerned about, hey, do these bosses fight well? Because who cares how good their story is if they're not fun to fight, right? Who gives a crap? I can make up a good story for somebody. Anyone can. Who cares?
Messmer burned away her church, and then she went and got rotted over and became this, I guess. Like, you know, it's very lackluster. Yeah, I wish she had a cutscene just like Rolana.
Everyone keeps saying
though.
that.
I love dodging her attacks. I love learning her fight. It seems fair. The hitboxes are, I'd say, a 95% consistent.
I agree.
I love the way she looks. Her design is really interesting.
I agree.
I just feel like they could have done a bit more with her, right? To where I don't think I can put her up there with the Divine Beast. I really don't think I could.
I put her
think
above
she's
Divine
the
Beast.
highest.
Because at least she has a decent freaking camera. So she's got everything except the camera, except like better lore. Who gives a crap? But bro, I watched the cutscenes for the Divine Beast. I don't know what the crap they're talking about. I don't care. No one cares. Who cares? I don't care.
B tier I could give, right on the cusp of.
Dude, you just said there's nothing bad with the lore, and you're putting her in B tier. Make it make sense. Are you kidding me?
A, Midra.
Okay, so let me get this straight. Oh, the boss is great. Perfect. I love everything about it. Music, arena, gameplay. It's so fun. Oh, the lore's not good. Slapping her in B tier. What sense does that make? Are you kidding me? But then you put Commander Gaius, who you said whose lore was fine, in D tier. I hate these ranking videos. They make no sense. They make no sense.
Lord of Frenzied Flame.
I love Midra.
I love this guy, man.
Me too. I love this one.
Talk about, just like I was saying with Romina, on feels like a Souls boss. That
It does.
If you're a veteran
Yes.
of the series, you just like understand and like this boss.
Yes,
I love
exactly.
him. He's not that hard. He has the most health, even more health than Bale.
What?
Than any other boss in the game.
No, he doesn't. Does he? No, he doesn't. There's no way. Well, you can attack him more frequently, so maybe he does. But like, no way. He can't have more. I'm looking this up. There's no way. Health 47,171. Okay. So Midra does have more health than Bale. The crap? It makes sense though, because he is the most simple to dodge. He is the most simple to learn, simple to execute. I love Midra. I think it's a great boss. I can't remember if I put it in A or S tier. I think I put it in A tier. But
He has the most health, which is, I didn't know that till this challenge. He's not super hard, but he's not super easy either. He's just a really good fight. The
like him a
lead
lot.
up through the Abyssal Woods is cool one time through.
Yeah.
But running through the Abyssal Woods to get back to Midra's Manse is
Oh, yeah.
definitely not it, bro. They needed to add a bit more into the surrounding areas
Definitely
of the Abyssal
did.
Woods, in my opinion. But if you're just gonna play through the DLC once, like, you could make the argument that it's sick to
which most people do. Don't assume everyone's doing these stupid challenge runs, learning every single move and know all the lore, know every single little correct thing to do for every move. No one's doing that. No one's doing that except these YouTubers and streamers. No one else is doing it. I freaking promise you that.
run around there and kind of like hide from the aging untouchables.
No, I
stuff
killed
like
them.
that.
I parried
His
them and killed
lore
them.
is so cool. He's got one of the best soundtracks in the game, man.
Does he? I don't know.
Movements are fun to dodge. Like, even as
unlike the lore, I want to care about the music, but I'm so busy fighting bosses that I don't really tune into the music. I don't listen to it. And also these bosses in particular are so hard that I can't do it.
However many times we died against him in this challenge run, I loved fighting against him. His hitboxes always seem fair. There's really not a lot that I dislike about this guy, man.
And yet, he's not going to put him in S tier. I'm predicting that.
So I think he's not as good as Mesmer. He's pretty close, but he's still in S tier. He outdoes the Divine Lion, in my opinion.
I agree.
I gotta put him in S.
I guess relative to DLC, ranking bosses would be a little different, but I agree. I love Major. He's probably my favorite in the DLC overall. As far as fun to fight, once you've learned them all, Mesmer's pretty up there. But I like Major a lot. He is a very Souls-like boss. Very Souls-like. Where you don't immediately freaking die, and his moves are telegraphed. They make sense, right? You can learn it in a relatively consistent way. That's why I like Mitra. He's not ridiculous.
Matir, Mother of Fingers. I don't really know how people feel about this boss personally. I think her design is cringe. It's just a mashup of weird fingers. And I know she's the Mother of Fingers. I get it. But for some reason, I feel like it was just easier to make a design around the Mother of Fingers just be a mosh posh of fingers.
I mean, yeah, but at the same time, how else would you make it look, right? How would you make it look? I don't.
And not something a little bit more interesting. You know what I mean? She just doesn't feel right. Yeah, I love her boss arena.
Oh yeah, the arena's great.
Cool with, like, you can see the hollowed out fingers. I'm not sure what that means lore wise. I don't look forward to fighting her ever.
I don't either.
But there's a lot of waiting around for her to get back down into a position where you can even hit her. Oh, she's doing a thing up in the sky. Oh, she's doing these lasers that I have to roll in a very specific way. Okay, now it's my turn to hit the boss.
Okay, so now you're saying that. Why aren't you saying that for any of the other bosses? Oh, what the crap ever. I'm about to quit this guy.
Okay, cool. It's kind of like how I feel about Estelle. I just forget about him. At the end of the quest line, like, oh shit, okay, yeah, I gotta go do that. You guys know the giant finger ruin areas that take up massive chunks of the map size?
Not a fan of that
They're
whole thing.
Extremely empty and underwhelming. And I don't think anybody's arguing that. Just kind of mid in every way, shape, and form. I'm putting her in C, in front of the Sunflower, but in C tier. Just in my personal opinion, I'm not.
So this time he says nothing but negative about it, basically, and then puts it in C tier and not D tier. I'm so confused, dude. I don't understand. What are these rankings? I don't understand. Has about as much bad to say as he did with Commander Gaius, but then doesn't put it in D tier. I don't know.
Not a big fan. If you like the boss, I get it. I just personally do not. Bail! Vile Bail! Guys, I know everybody
Oh, he was quoting the... Yeah, I was so confused for a second.
Loves Egon, okay? I know everyone likes his quest line, man.
I haven't actually done his quest line.
Bail here, okay? Best dragon fight ever.
No, not even close. Midra is still the best dragon fight. This one is ridiculous. How freaking long do I have to wait between attacks? How much damage does he do? How long is his fight? Like, good grief. No, not even close to the best dragon boss. Most cinematic dragon boss? Sure, but that's kind of easy to pull at this point.
In any video game, best dragon fight ever made, and it's not even close.
No.
I love it. I love everything about it.
Are you kidding me, dude?
His design is freaking sick. Egon's questline leading up to him is really interesting. Although I feel like they could have expanded on it a bit more, like of how he's getting up there, but that, you know, it is what it is. You like him better than Midir? I do. I do like him more than Midir, and I think Midir is an S from Dark Souls 3. I do. So, Bale's in front of Midra, but still behind Meth.
So we're gonna not talk about the fact that he is not mentioning the camera. The camera on Bale is terrible, awful. Like, the worst. I remember in Dark Souls 3, it would at least zoom you out a bit, depending, but like, Bale's camera is terrible, and honestly probably ruins the entire fight, because you can't see, like, the camera's pointing you up, but there's always attacks coming out of the ground, and you haven't learned them yet, so you're gonna die, and you have no clue how you died, and it's super stupid. He attacks everywhere all the time. Fighting him just isn't fun. I don't know. He's doing the same thing he did with Mesmer. Boss good, boss good, this good. No explanation at all. He doesn't explain any of the bad. All these bosses have some bad. Even in Mesmer, he mentioned the inconsistent snake hitboxes, but visually. But then Bale wastes a crap ton of your time. His attacks are everywhere. Learning him is a complete pain. Oh, he looks good. Oh, his lore's good. I swear that's what the Elden Ring community sounds like. Oh, lore good, suddenly boss good. Who gives a crap?
Mesmer, I just like fighting him. There's really not that.
What do you mean you like fighting him? You don't even get to fight him hardly in the second phase. He flies around like a crazy man. Like,
that much more I could say about him. His lore, that him and Placidusax like fought against each other, and you can see Placidusax's heads that he ripped off on his body, and Bale's missing a leg that Placidusax ripped off of him. That is so dope, man.
Sure, sounds cool in concept until I'm fighting the guy and I don't give a crap because it's a boss fight in a video game. Who cares about the story? Talk about the boss. If you want to tier list the stories, then tier list the story. Stop basing it so heavily on the story. That's what he's doing. That's what he is doing, especially with like the finger. Oh, I don't like the boss. I have nothing good to say about it. Puts it in C tier.
And that's one of the ways, one of the very few ways that they connected the base game with the DLC, which is like my biggest take on the DLC, is that everything feels so disconnected from each other.
Yeah, but realm of the dead,
and
basically.
Bale are like very clearly interconnected, and that felt good. It was so cool, man. It's great lore, and the connection to the base game is not too much, but you know, was just enough to make me happy. You know what I mean? It's just like a pure spectacle.
I'm not saying story doesn't matter, but don't base half of your opinion on the boss based on the story. Stories are easy to write. Good, maybe not good stories, but you can make excuses in stories for all kinds of stuff. Like, it's with a little bit of time, it's not that difficult.
Like, I love it. I love everything about it. Chat, we got one more. Promise Consort Radon and Mikola. I want to see where you guys would put him first. High.
Where did I put him? I think I put him in D to make a statement. Although he did get nerfed, so yeah, I probably should re-record my tier list. Yeah, he did get nerfed. I gotta fight him again. He might go up to C. I don't know. But it's the same thing, man. I don't care about the lore. Everyone apparently hates the lore. I don't give a crap. Michelot's dead. I don't give a crap. But learning the boss was so painful. You cannot replace the memories. You cannot replace the hours I spent trying to beat the guy. Trying to learn every little stupid thing about it. I ended up learning how to parry him just to beat him normally. Like, ugh. I don't know how people can defend Radon. There's fun, challenging, and then there's just challenging. And Consort Radon is the most challenging boss we have received in any Souls game, period.
Highest B, C, F, B minus. I'm seeing a lot of C's. So I don't know if you guys know this, but I have put a ridiculous amount of time and practice into this boss in a bunch of different ways.
Okay, so I presume he's either going to surprise me or he's going to say, oh, because I know everything about this boss, I'm going to put it in S tier, right? Because of course you can do that. You could put
I have no-hit this boss several times now, so I learned everything that I could to dodge everything in this fight so that I could make a pure, objective take on this.
Okay, dude. You don't have to no-hit a boss to make a pure, objective take on a boss. You don't have to do a challenge run to have an objective take on a boss. I mean, it's not objective if you're doing challenge runs at all, because no one's doing challenge runs. FromSoft wasn't expecting you to do challenge runs. Well, they knew you would, but they weren't expecting the average player to try to no-hit the freaking DLC. Objective is from a average player's perspective, because that's what average Souls player, right? Average Elden Ring player. That's what FromSoft was making the game for. They're making it for their average fan base. No hitting a boss does not suddenly give you an objective view. Now, it'll help you say whether a boss is literally unfair, as in you can't dodge some attacks, but if you could only barely dodge some attacks, then consider that. Consider that. Doing challenge runs can blind your perspective on some bosses. I've almost no-hit Dark Souls before. I've gotten like almost to the very end of Dark Souls 1 no-hit, but, you know, so I have opinions on certain things that other people wouldn't. But at the same time, I haven't really lost that feeling of the average playthrough, because I don't do challenge runs. I don't just go out of my way to constantly do challenge runs.
So first thing, best soundtrack in the DLC
It's
by
cool.
far. I love it. I love that soundtrack.
Mm.
It is so dope. It hypes
It's
me
good.
up for the difficulty and the situation that I'm in, literally fighting a god. It's perfect. Lore wise,
Fighting a
I'm
god.
confused and I'm disappointed. I get it,
I don't care.
but I don't like it. That's the best way I can put it. I would have much rather had Godwin here somehow. And before somebody says, well, Godwin, it couldn't have been Godwin because he's dead, bro. Yeah, shut up. You're telling me they couldn't made up some bullshit to get Godwin?
Shut up. You're telling me that you'll put someone up in freaking higher tiers just because of their lore, but then when you hate their lore, you'll still put them in C. When you hate the whole boss, you'll still put them in C. Shut up.
In there that everybody wanted, that all of the lore with Mikola alluded to an eclipse, so like using some sort of eclipse to bring Godwin back from his bodily spirit dead state. Another thing is his design. I think Mikola's design is fine, and I think Radahn's design is stupid. He's supposed to be a mix of Mohg's body and Radahn's spirit. Why does he look exactly like Prime Radahn? This seems just like an arbitrary way to bring in Prime Radahn because everybody glazed Radahn in the base game. Even me. I loved Radahn before the DLC, to be honest. Like him existing in the DLC brings him down in the base game for me now.
See, look how hard he's going in on the lore, dude. Are we not playing a video game? Rank movie villains or something if you want to talk stories. Like, this is ridiculous to me. I don't understand why they're emphasizing lore so hard. Everyone does this, by the way. This isn't just Agent Jake. Everyone does this. Well, I don't care what I still don't know the lore, and I don't care. All I know is that the boss is annoying.
He was my favorite, and now references Mohg. Lazy. Total mix of Mohg's horns, like stuff creative with how they
I don't care
in his gauntlets, man. It just feels lazy to me. Boss mechanics.
Thank you.
There's a lot of arbitrary, contrived difficulty with this fight.
Thank you.
You have to dodge in a very specific way
to
dodge attacks.
Even the challenge runners saying
I don't necessarily dislike that, but I don't like it either. So like I said, I've no-hit this boss a whole bunch of times with different weapons. It's very artificial.
It is.
And there was a point where I got the game early. I got the game 2 weeks early, and this fight, when I got there, was completely different from what it was now and totally broken. They were not even remotely close to finishing this boss in time by release. The boss arena was way too bright. You could not see anything. One gripe that I have with the boss is that Mikola's hair gets in the way of every visual that you could want in this fight, since you have to stay so close to Radahn. But we got to talk about one thing, chat: the ending. Can we be honest with each other here? That ending was bad. I think,
again, I don't give a crap because it's not the actual game's ending. It's you are in a realm of, like, with different rules as far as life and death is concerned, right? Why do we care so much? It was a little disappointing. Like, as far as cinematic nature is concerned, it was disappointing. The rewards are cool, but that one cutscene was kind of... It felt like it was only for lore people. It gave me nothing. I was like, wait, so I'm done? That's the DLC? Well, I mean, obviously I beat the boss. I was freaked out. I finally beat it, right? But watching the cutscene, I was like, oh, so that's the end of the DLC. But it's not the end of the game. What were you expecting? Credits? Like... It can only get so cinematic because you still have to beat the game, right?
I think you're coping if you think that ending was good. I really do. I think you're coping. Most of this fight is a letdown. But here's one of these things, chat, that I gotta bring up in this topic. I look forward to fighting him, and I liked learning it.
I'm just gonna skip and see where he puts it because I'm so tired of this guy's reasoning. His reasoning is so inconsistent. Complains about camera, still puts boss in A tier. Complains about camera again, or a boss has the same issue, doesn't put him in A still, like Bale. Says basically the opposite of what Bale actually is, and then proceeds to put him in S tier, right? I'm so sick of this guy's reasoning, I just want to see where he puts him.
I know that's not our objective to walk up there, but shut up. Let me walk up there and just look at the golden view, even if nothing happens. Let me walk up there and just look at it, bro. That's all I'm asking for. I'm not asking to become a god and walk through the gate like Mikla does in stage 2. I'm not asking for that. I just want to be up there. You know, a cutscene up there. A lot of people in the comments section, well, that's going to be the entrance to the second DLC. And I don't have the heart to tell them
that's not how that works.
That Miyazaki and From Software have basically confirmed that they're not making another DLC and they're not going to expand anymore. So that's coping beyond the beyond.
And not only that, buying a first DLC just to get to the second one, that's stupid. That's the dumbest thing ever.
If they said it's not going to happen, they could be lying for more hype, I guess.
No, they're not doing it.
They said it's not happening.
They barely even got this first one done.
At the highest B. I enjoy learning the fight, and sometimes that's all you need to be a good, decent fight. But there's a lot in there that I just can't ignore. I think.
But then you do ignore for other bosses. Okay, so I'm done. Okay, so that was insanely infuriating. I don't care if he likes some bosses, but he's literally saying things that just aren't true. Oh, camera is bad for Dancing Lion, but then I just don't mention the camera for Bale, who arguably is worse because attacks come from the ground more often in Bale's fight than they do in Dancing Lion's fight. And at least Dancing Lion, he like does a lot of things to telegraph that he's using like lightning and frost, but there's some defenses I can have for the Dancing Lion. Bale, he's literally just cinematic and that's it. Bale's cinematic, he's an extremely annoying fight. Very tedious to learn. I have to wonder what people did to learn these fights, because I seem to be the only person who struggled with it. According to all these people who make lists and tier lists, I'm the only person who actually had to brute force learn these bosses. Like actually learn the bosses and beat them. Because if you're like me, and you went in blind, I looked up nothing until I got to Radon, and I had to look up stuff. But if you got to these bosses, it took you hours. It had to have. Maybe not hours. I guess if you just straight repeated it, it could take like an hour. But it felt like hours. Especially people like Bale, freaking Mesmer, Radon. Radon took me actual hours. Hours and hours of fighting him. And just trying to solo him with an actual weapon. I did parry, but just by myself, weapon only, no shield, no summons. Ugh. I'd already beaten him a couple times, and I still struggled. So, this list is pretty cursed, I'm not gonna lie. Not because of their placement, but why they're there. So, that'll do it for me. Holy crap. Am I really the only person who doesn't care about the lore? It's fun here's the thing about lore in these games. It's fun to learn little bits at a time. I like learning the little stories here and there. Like, okay, Saint Trina was love interest for Mikla at one point, and she was basically trying to, like, reason with him. That's why she's kind of dead-ish. I don't know. I forget the details, but I like learning little things at a time. I'll read something here. I'll look at something there just to slowly get a more appreciation for the medium I'm playing. But I don't go out of my way to look up the lore because, gosh dang, there's literally no videos that exist that are less than like an hour long on certain topics that I want to learn about. So I know I'm probably the only person who thinks all the things I just said in this video, but lore is not half of the boss. It's like a tenth of it at best, right? Like, if a story sucks, but you enjoyed the fight, you'll be like, oh wow, I want to fight this boss again, right? I'm excited to fight this boss again. But then if the story's great and the boss fight sucks, you're gonna think, oh, I don't want to fight this boss. I'm not looking forward to this, like Commander Gaius, right? Who cares how good the story is? It doesn't matter. The boss fight sucks. Or the music sucks, in Gaius' case. But that's it. Oh my goodness. I'm done ranting. I'm done. My voice is gone, or I feel it going away. I feel my throat getting sore. So that'll do it for me. Sorry, Agent Jake. I don't hate you. I'm just wondering why I seem to be the only person who thinks this way. It's not directed to him. It's basically like the whole Elden Ring community from what I've seen. Does everyone just watch Vadi Vidya? Is that what I'm getting at? Am I the only one who doesn't watch him? I don't know. I feel like just hearing someone explain something to you just isn't as fun. But in these games, you kind of need to. So anyways, I'm done. Please like, subscribe if you managed to get this far. I do this a lot, so don't you dare go hollow.